This episode of Super Pulp Science is brought to you by chasingartwork.com, where you can buy my prints and books. Shipping is worldwide. chasingartwork.com.
Attention, citizens. It's time for Super Pulp Science.
This is Super Pulp Science, where we talk about how genre gets made. I am here with two stalwart traveling companions, and we are fresh from San Diego Comic-Con 2026. Also in studio with us is producer extraordinaire. He looks a little warm.
You didn't say who they were.
I will get to them. They each in turn need their proper introduction.
Okay.
But you, Dan, we couldn't do it without you, Dan Vadeboncoeur. Now, dear listener, I just want you to know that if you are going to a room with 250,000 people all clamoring to get in to a distant country that is very hot and very humid, and you have to put in many kilometers a day on your little feet, the people you want to travel with are people who are cool under pressure. And so this is my tangible way of thanking these two traveling pals for just being so effortless in this very harrowing journey. My collaborator on The Eye Collector, Dr. Jonathan Vall, thank you for coming on the show.
Thanks for having me.
And my long-suffering co-host and long-suffering cohabitator for the last week, Justin Curry, known the world over as Chasing Artwork. And we know that's true because orders have started to come in after the show. Ting, ting, ting. Yeah.
I'm so sick of you guys.
Yeah.
Heroes.
I'm going to work backwards. At the end of a show like San Diego Comic-Con, like what happened last year, you can tell exactly how successful it is by how little you want to talk to each other, just so you can wrap your heads around everything that has occurred. And silences can be awkward. And so another tangible thank you for you guys for just being the sorts of guys that just lock in your own minds and understand now it's the time to just think for a little while and be quiet while we drag our suitcases around. I really appreciate that. So, gentlemen, crazy. This was Jonathan's very first San Diego Comic-Con. So why don't we start with first impressions?
My first impression actually was that it was way longer than I thought it would be.
Like physically or
like narrower. Like the convention center, when I first got in, I was like, oh, this is not big.
Because you can see the other wall.
One side to the other, it's not that big. But then the other direction is like Caesar's Palace, like how long it is crazy. And then when you jam everyone in there, you know, it is difficult to get around on that floor. And like, I haven't been to a con that busy before either.
The sheer number of forklifts that do not care if you are in their way, running at full speed when you come in on that. We came before pre-Unite to set up.
Like a swarm.
Yeah, just a swarm of monstrous machines. And then little comic creators running to and fro, hoping not to be squished.
But then even when it's all set up, and like on the Wednesday, 99% of the show is ready to go. There are no attendees in there yet. It's just exhibitors. So the floor is as empty as it's ever going to be. And you can have your time to walk through. By the time you get, I want to say like halfway through, your brain cannot process what you're looking at anymore. It's just overloaded by all the things. And you just keep feeding it more things. Like, there was, by the end, I'd walked down like the same row 3 times and just nothing was getting retained.
Couldn't sink in anymore.
Yeah.
And as a way of contrast to your listener, if you've gone to a Comic-Con here in Canada locally, the difference is as follows. Most of the creator-owned booths, most of the exhibitor booths, they are small enterprises trying their best to get your attention. At San Diego Comic-Con, billion-dollar corporations have designed their booths for an entire year to ensure that they capture your attention. But the problem is, if you're walking by quickly, it's fragmenting your mind because they have got a grip but you moved on, and it's
Well,
absolutely overload.
yeah, that's the other thing that to me was a really weird first impression was I was really stunned at the complexity of some of the booths, but also how I didn't understand what the point of half of them was.
For example,
Activations.
Blink 182 and 7-Eleven
Plus Pac-Man.
plus Pac-Man.
Yeah, we don't understand.
What
that.
is even the product? I was looking at it and I couldn't understand what I was
But
being
guys,
sold.
we just named all three of those things on our show, so they have won that round.
Is that what it is?
They have won that round.
And also, like, not to cast aspersions on, a company like Marvel by any means, but I was very confused why they don't sell comics at their booth. Or do they
Another-
find them or something? Like,
Streams, since you brought up Marvel, we'll just jump around a little bit. The show can be as erratic as our brains right now, so we're just going to offload. We went to the Eisners, and there's a lot of stories there, which will trickle out over, I'm sure, a number of episodes, but almost no nominations for Marvel, and I don't think any wins, maybe one or
there's
two.
a couple. I know the Storm series.
Storm series,
There was like one or two.
Yeah, I
It was-
could not
it
believe
was
how absent
surprising.
they were
Yeah.
from the broader comics landscape and broader
Very
conversation.
present with the movie stuff.
Yeah.
Like to a crazy degree. So much they're advertising like Doom movies so much that I forgot they had a Spider-Man movie they could have been advertising.
Yeah, it's coming out like this in a couple
This
days.
week.
It was
No,
like
this
right
week.
away.
Yeah. I mean, maybe they were. It was such a big con.
It's too late
but
for them there,
maybe.
right? Those advertising dollars, they only have so many. I'm sure they're looking ahead.
I mean, they would have had a panel or something though, as well, right? Like,
Yeah.
The little stuff was cool. That they were showing off the Latvian witch costume, which was really neat.
And then the very last day of the show, maybe it was Saturday, I don't know. One other day of the show, when I walked past the Latvian setup where they had the Doom Witch, she was now standing beside Doom. So they
I missed that.
made like a diorama that changed every day, it seemed like.
That's cool.
So,
Did you guys see Johnny Depp as
You
Ebenezer
see
Scrooge?
nothing, Dan. But
All the cool
Let's-
stuff happens during the
let's-
show.
Jonathan's on the left.
let's talk about things we
Jonathan's
didn't see.
yeah, we didn't see Johnny Depp, but we did see the building that they had. It was really amazing.
Building's
Down on
cool.
the street, down on the main drag of San Diego.
Okay.
They had retrofitted one of the place to be Cratchit. Marley and Scrooge's.
Harley and mine.
That's right. That's the one. And then apparently, every now and then at random with no schedule, Johnny Depp in full makeup would come out and tell people to go back to work. It's a work day.
Yeah,
or
the
what should be at work.
Impressive part about that is
Yeah.
how hot he must have
Oh, for
been.
Sure.
San Diego is not a cool place. I mean, it was a cool place.
Other things we know about but did not see. Guillermo del Toro was only 100 meters from us at one part on Saturday at Inside Editions, but we were so caught up in our own nonsense we didn't even notice. I had a chance to meet and spend some time with Danny Trejo, but I had to say no because I had to run off to my Image Comics panel. I got, hey, come in. I know Danny. Why don't you come and meet him? It'll be so fun. And I had to look my friend Alen in the eye and say, I'm sorry, I'm too busy.
I'm sorry, I cannot go meet Danny Trejo with
Yeah,
you.
yeah.
Did you ever think you
He's
would ever
literally
say this?
Never. Yeah. I literally said that out loud and then was like, what?
What's wrong with
This
you?
is so weird. This is.
Screw the panel.
Yeah, no.
They would all understand.
No.
No, they would.
Well, my panelists would have understood, but I feel like my
Yes.
publisher would have felt
Sure.
slighted. This might be, Dan, the only Image Comics panel I ever get to be on, so I wasn't going to miss it.
I had a kind of similar thing where I was at this breakfast event host. Long story short is I was at a breakfast event hosted by Scott Snyder. And the only thing I got a chance to say to Scott Snyder at the whole event was I had him an eye collector and I thanked him for his blurb. And then I said, I've got to leave early.
Because he also had a panel at another time.
Okay.
Yeah, so things just like a huge music festival where there are multiple stages happening all time, every day, it is absolutely impossible to be physically present enough to see everything. There is just no way to do. And then also we're at work, right? So you got to work. You're there to work. You have to work.
What brings you to USA?
We were on holiday. We've been to Comic-Con.
You guys know Benny Hill?
No.
Justin, how was work?
Well, my celebrity encounter came to me, which was the great thing.
Oh.
So in
Wait, let me set you up.
Yeah.
Let me set you up. Are we talking about the same one?
yeah,
Yes.
I assume so.
So as we were coming into the show, I was talking about people I hoped to run into, people I might run and track down, some your list of like wishful thinking. And Justin goes, I'm so busy. I only have time for them if they come to me. And lo and behold,
I don't think that's quite what it said.
that's what he said. And he stood up on a throne made of shattered vector while he said this. Yes. And lo and behold, across from him, you could tell the rest of this story.
So yeah, since earlier this year, I've been a big fan of the audio series Dungeon Crawler Carl. And it's like a fantasy lit RPG book series. And I'd heard kind of murmurings about it, and I checked it out. I absolutely fell in love with the audiobooks. I listen to a lot of audiobooks, so when I say they are my favorite audiobooks, like, has a little bit of weight to it. And so in March, I started working on a Dungeon Crawler Carl piece that's like full of all these characters from like books 1 to 5 and like all these little things going on. And from March, the like hype that is Dungeon Crawler Carl has ramped right up because Seth MacFarlane has picked up the property to be made into a TV show, and all these other announcements started happening around the series. So it went from like a little bit on my radar to on everybody's radar, to the point where I think it's getting annoying how many people are telling you to listen to these books, read these books. They're really good books, right?
The hype is a little annoying. I've actually resisted listening because everyone tells me I should listen.
What is that about?
Oppositional defiance.
Is that what that is?
I absolutely get that too. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like too many people tell me to check something out. I'm less likely to check it out, right?
Screw you. I don't want to.
Absolutely.
That's how I felt about Where the Crawdad Sings. I may have mentioned this before. Everyone was like, it's a beautiful book. You should read it. I was like, no, I won't. And every person I know in all these different arenas were like, this book is so beautiful. You'll love it. No, I won't read it. And then my wife was reading it and she's like, you should read it. And I was like, okay,
Fine.
You I trust. And then I read it. And man, it is such a beautiful work of poetry and prose. It's so amazing.
So I got this piece done not only in time for San Diego, but just in time to print a new banner of it, which I was able to send off with some Stranger Fiction banners.
And you had lots of time to pick it up.
I'm really excited about this. Yeah. So Gregory picked up the banners a couple days before the show. We fly into San Diego. Gregory is at the airport. He's shuffling some things in his suitcase, wants to get out of his bag, and he hands me my brand new 2 banners.
Oh, exciting, right?
There's not 2 of them. It's just the same one twice. So unfortunately, my printer, instead of printing 2 banners, they've just printed 1 twice, and I didn't have my new Dungeon Crawler Carl banner. And it was a little sad. I was really looking forward to that. But to Premier Printing from Winnipeg, what happened?
Shout out to Premier. This is not a paid ad,
No.
but man, it should be.
But I phoned the rep and explained what happened, and I took a picture of Gregory holding both banners up like a scarecrow.
I prefer like a Roman general, but if you prefer scarecrow, I suppose that's more accurate.
And they did a rush printing and shipped it down to San Diego, so it was there within a day.
Wow.
To put up at the booth, which was perfect because it turned out the writer from Dungeon Crawler Carl was across from me
Across the aisle.
couple times during the weekend at this big, it was like a toy booth that was selling his toys, and they had booked him for some signings. So it was really, really exciting. You can tell he self-published the first 6 books of his 8-book series, and he's kind of new to being super famous at San Diego Comic-Con, and looked a little overwhelmed, but still having a really good time. And at the end of the show, I didn't get to talk to him, but his handler came up and said, like, he has seen your poster a bunch of times and really, really likes it. To which I replied, like, would he like one? And I could just see the, like, hesitation in the handler's eyes. So I kind of got ahead of his, like, do a lot of people give him free things? He's like, so many people give him free things. I'm like, I'm not going to add to the pile if he's just going to end up on a pile of free things, but tell him thank you, and I really appreciate it.
Dear listener and completists of Super Pulp Science, if you go into the Wayback Machine, you can find an early episode called Destination Oblivion, where I tell the story of Eric Larson not taking stuff that he actually wants and giving me his card instead, because he said, everything you hand me goes in this box, and that box goes in the garbage. I can't fly home with all this stuff. But please, I would like to follow up with this, so send it to me digitally, right?
I get handed so much free stuff myself. I can't imagine like someone who's
we're nobodies.
what
Imagine what
Couton
somebody gets.
it gets or whatever. Yeah,
How did the panels go? Let's talk about that.
great. Yeah, I was really pleased.
It was so fun. So, dear listener, I've done a lot of paneling in my life, big and small. Sometimes I'm chasing someone's coattails. Sometimes I've earned my spot on there. But what can happen on a panel for sure is everyone get introduced and then they will say one or two things, and you can sometimes feel yourself. I've felt this. The sudden realization that you do not want to be associated with some of the panelists. And so you have to like really fortify your lane and just make your answers. You don't +1 their ideas for fear that you will now be associated with them in all future viewings of that recording, right? Whereas at this panel, we met at the image booth first and we all walked over. So we had a nice long walk to get there. And there was some really great chemistry, and some people it was their very first panel, and some people they were old hat at it, and they really gelled, and we just had a wonderful conversation about how stories are made and why they're made and how genre gets made and all of those things. And it was a really great experience. I will say though that the person who writes and illustrates, Brett Bean, is that right? Writes and illustrates Dork. It's a big image book right now. I had mentioned to Jim, help me with his last name. Not Jim Machak.
Regular guest on the podcast.
Yeah, Jim Viscardi. That I wanted to hand out some copies of iCollector because it had sold out at the distro level. So if anyone hears about it and wants to find it, they won't be able to. And he said yes. And then the guy who writes and illustrates Dork says, oh, well, make the rest of us look like assholes. And so instead, as I handed them out, I said, brought to you by Dork. And I handed out
it was my cool moment with the panels. So I did a panel for Image books, and I did one for Gungnir answer to books as well, or Image comics and Gungnir books. And the Gungnir one was really great because we had a lot of writers coming to it who then we hung out in the hallway for like an hour, all of us answering questions because more people show up than we had expected and so on. And that was really nice just to meet like all sorts of people and get questions about different things. And the Image one was really cool about it was two sort of things. One is that before we went up, I had brought like some iCollector comics for just to give as gifts to the other panelists. And as I was like passing them out, I had like half of the panelists were like, I already bought it. And so that was really like just a cool moment. I had a lot of like little weird moments like that where it was just like, you go to a thing like that and you think nobody has a clue what the hell I'm doing over here. But I was surprised how many people I talked to who knew what the iCollector was.
Yeah. And I had a really great interaction at the booth because Jonathan had, I guess, said some really wonderful things or really room dividing things, which is sometimes his want. And it got some people's attention. So they showed up at the booth while he was not there. And they said of all of the previews of all of the books that they've seen, they found Jonathan's presentation or his comments about the iCollector to be the newest, freshest thing. And so they came and gave me all these compliments about my collaborator and just said, like, when is he going to be here? Can he sign our books? And it was like never had experience like that at there. And we may never have it again.
Yeah.
Right? So we've made a number of jokes that now begins our inevitable decline. We may never be as popular as we were in that moment. And now it's just the rest.
Issue 2 out today?
Today. Yeah. Issue 2 is out today.
And a reprint of 1.
And the reprint of issue 1, which sold out at the distro level. And Stephen Call and Scott Ford both did covers for us. So that's kind of exciting.
Almost.
And when people asked on the panel about our alt covers, like they displayed the covers at the panel, and then they told that they were variants, and then some of the panelists showed interest, and so did some of the crowd. And so they asked me, who are these artists, and like who are these people? And I said, I got to say and shout out Winnipeg, the Winnipeg community, and make a point of saying, if you're going to help anyone with a variant cover, it should be the people who have stood by you low these many years and not just those who are chasing variants. Like I said, help your friends and not the speculators if you ever get a chance like this, especially if it'll be so brief. And so that was a nice moment. So Scott and Stephen, you both got shout outs on the panel and some oohs and ahs as your covers were presented. That was excellent.
These guys have met Adam Shadowchild. Who the hell's Adam Shadowchild?
He wrote the Jupiter Praxis.
What?
Jenny Starpepper and the Huge White Gibbon.
Night of the Moths.
Speaking English?
Brilliant.
What I struggle to understand with variant covers in regards to speculation is my understanding is that if I were to buy a bunch of covers with the intention, if I were of speculating, A is always worth the most.
No.
Okay, so then I am in just that's what's confused me.
Like anything that is speculation, it largely depends on the future career of those people, right? So as a strong example of this, Eric Sawatsky, who did, as a favor to us, a cover for issue 1 of the Eye Collector, also won an Eisner for Best New Series. And so suddenly that cover that no one knew might be worth something, quote unquote, suddenly now has a higher value because his career has risen and this was him starting and doing something for
Okay. Now it makes a bit more sense.
But I agree with what you're thinking because
it's like the rookie card.
Well, or the first edition. First edition is going to be worth the most, right, of a book. So why wouldn't it be the same for a comic book?
But strange about that. Yeah, strange about that. And sometimes this bears out in the speculator market. The second edition often has a lower print run. So if it has a different cover and a lower print run, it's actually there's fewer.
So in our case,
in our
theoretically, if the Eye Collector became like a massive comic, the second printing might be worth more than the first.
That's right, because it's the rarer one.
I get it.
Okay, so now I think I understand a bit better now.
But again, speculation is just about what other speculators are willing to pay, not a real assessment of value.
Crypto.
Yeah. Well, it is because it's the greater fool's theory.
Yeah,
economic value.
So speaking of that kind of stuff, did you guys, like, more so than any other convention we do anywhere else in the world, San Diego is like the place where there are exclusives and people are hunting for those exclusives and getting in line?
I'm told.
And again, you were stuck behind the booth and
I just saw a bunch of lines.
I saw
I'm going to get into.
Yeah.
And that's all I know about SDCC exclusives.
And I
got given one by I met Pornsack, who writes Green Arrow.
Yeah,
absolutely Green Arrow, and he gave me this cool ass pin that apparently says like SDCC exclusive. Now I'm assuming.
Well, that's where that came from.
I'm
I saw it
assuming
at
you
the
have to
hotel.
stand in line for that.
Yes,
and there was stuff like that.
Sorry, dear listener, if you stood in line for hours. Jonathan was just handed one at a breakfast.
Well, but the point I'm making is apparently there's a whole weird economy around these exclusives that I wasn't aware of.
People reselling them immediately, right?
Immediately.
Like getting a whole bunch, keeping one, selling the rest on eBay the next day for triple the price.
So much so that they have to check your bet. Like, so for example, our neighbors next to us, who run the Making Comics podcast, I believe it's called.
Yeah.
Keith and Scott, I remember their first names. One of them, Keith, was trying to get one of the San Diego exclusives at Mondo. And they kept checking his badge when he came in, and they would say, creators or exhibitors have to wait till 2:00. You can't skip the line. You can't come in early. In fact, we're penalizing your access by making it later, so you actually might miss out.
Well, apparently what used to, not only would exhibitors and vendors line up first, but some people were just buying tables just to get the passes to come early. Not doing anything with those tables, but they wanted the early access to get all these exclusive.
And then flip. They'd make all their money flipping things that were
So I had to crack down on that.
Like all things, people who try to turn it into quick money ruin it. And there is some of that going on right now because of the absolute Batman retailer variant craze, people breaking the on-sale date. I went to what would otherwise, to a normal person, dear listener, probably would have been the most boring panel of your life. I went and sat in on one. But I saw that there was a panel on the detailed breakdown of how distribution works, and all the main distributors were there talking spreadsheets and numbers and pick lines and all the rest. I could not have been more interested. It was absolutely a great panel. And if you care about how the stuff works, right? But they were saying that now they have to essentially hire a police force, an internal police force that tracks down retailers that are breaking on sale date, because they're essentially doing the same thing. They're receiving the stock before anyone. They're flipping it before anyone and breaking the on sale date with third-party websites that they have crafted for themselves.
And related to that, DC is penalizing and banning stores for price gouging the variants now.
Yeah.
Hmm.
So don't ruin the hobby for people, you greedy sons of, like, come on. Just let people like their stuff. Stop slapping them. Let them read them.
Monetize your hobby.
The joke we were making before my panel with the other creators there was that we're all working in the variant cover mines on a certain level.
Yeah. And it's true. You have no choice. But
I like the variant covers as a creator, though, because you get to show off cool art. I get to see other people or chirp at the eye collector. Like, I think it's but it is like, it has become a weird second job.
Yeah. Yeah, it is a weird second job. I had,
and I'm not even making the covers, and it's a ton of work.
Yeah.
I can't imagine if you're.
I was going to say, well, Jonathan, let me tell you what it's like to actually do them. But the show itself, despite all the people, all the bad actors that also glom onto it, are full of 200,000 dedicated, interested, loving, patient people who show up. I found out that there's a lottery in the state to try and get into just getting a regular attendee pass. Like, it's really hard to get to the show.
I might be wrong about this, but I think there's the same thing as like with exhibitors. You can like grandfather back your pass for next year.
Right.
So once you get a 4-day pass, you can choose to rebook it that year, which really helps the convention. They get a huge influx of money to plan out next year.
Right. Yeah.
And then you save money, so like you never want to give up.
They get a
pass.
tax-free loan.
Yeah.
The thing just in terms of your first impressions versus, I had kind of a first impression versus later impression thing, because my first impression from what I'd heard and also what I saw when I got there was, oh, this isn't a comic convention. This is like movies and other crap. But and actually was surprised on how much it was about comics, and I met so many people who were actually interested in comics.
Yeah, it depends where you're standing, right? Depends on the sphere.
And I've felt that before too, like New York Comic Con, San Diego Comic Con. It feels like you're more at like a professional trade show because you were surrounded by so many booths that cost $30,000 just to build, let alone what they're charged for the floor.
Absolutely.
Like,
Absolutely.
on the map.
Yeah.
Yeah,
you saw somebody re-up there with like an incredible build.
I was standing in line on the Sunday to rebook my spot because again, you save a lot of money if you rebook for next year. So it helps me out, it helps them out. But then nobody ever gives up their booth because you save so much. And I don't know what the booth was in front of me, but I saw the credit card thing pop up on the screen as $20,000 that they were putting down. And I don't know if that was for the whole booth amount or just the deposit for whatever the actual footprint was. Yeah. So that might have been Funko. Who knows?
Yeah. So there's and as a result of there being that much overhead cost, there is a sense of desperation sometimes should you see a big, expensive booth not garnering attention. And so then they push people out into the aisles to like bark, and get people to come and care, which actually, with my personality, makes me leave faster, right? Like that's the.
And I was surprised with all that, how much when I like got into the show, how much I would meet people who really, it was about the comics, and it was really like they were really looking for something different, and so on. So I was pleasantly surprised against my first impression.
Yeah. Was it Jonathan or you, Gregory, who said like San Diego should not be your very first convention to vend at?
Oh, don't do that.
Yeah.
Don't do that to yourself. Oh my gosh. Unless you're local and maybe independently wealthy, don't do that.
But there's somebody there who's probably been local and tabling at San Diego from the beginning.
Yeah,
we met those people.
Yeah. We see.
Okay, this sounds unkind, but I did see some people and I did talk to them, and they clearly had been, I thought it was their first time.
Yeah.
Oh no.
Right.
That's what I would say. It looked like the first time they'd ever set up a booth, and their work was interesting, and their personality was, I'll just avoid that part of this conversation. But I happened to say, oh, is this your first time? They said, no, I've been doing it for 12 years. And I can't imagine being in a space for 12 years and not improving over a first-time setup in a room that has that many people who are so good at it. Like, you just have to look around and see every example of how it does work. The other thing I will say is I believe somebody's success in the comic book professional writing and illustration space may be inversely proportional to the amount of day drinking they're doing at the show. Right?
Sure.
Yes, I will say that I believe that this is not a scientific sample, but over a few hundred shows, I've started to garner this anecdotal information that if you're day drinking a lot at the show, you may be missing out on a few opportunities that may otherwise have been there to a clear mind.
You guys partake?
No, thank you.
I'll partake.
Are you sure? It's pretty strong shit. I get it from the military, actually. This is the stuff that killed Dylan.
Bob Dylan's not dead.
Isn't he?
I feel pretty good about my booth setup at most every show, but San Diego, I always feel like there's a lot of room to improve, which I think is good to be exposed to that every once in a while. And maybe 12 years ago, that booth really worked for these people.
Next year, table mates, though.
Improved. Maybe they really,
I will say, next to, I would say 75% of the booths around you, Chasing Artwork is the jewel in that crown there.
I did my best.
Yeah, you work hard and it looked really good. And just, we got there early, dear listener, a day ahead so that we could be set up for preview night. And we do that because we're going to a strange city. We're going to a strange country. We have to have stuff manufactured in the state. So we have to pick it up. We have to get it places. The whole world is against you because they're all trying to get into the same building at the same time.
We have this lovely tradition at San Diego because you cannot pull up to the building from like the Monday they close down the road to go up to the San Diego building. And so if you're an exhibitor, your options are go to the parkade and use some freight elevator to come up, which
didn't work. I found out was broken.
Of course it was.
Yeah.
You get a spot in the loading dock, which is just I don't even know how to describe what's going on in the back of the building, but the amount of semis and forklifts. So the horror show back there. So what we do, our tradition is drop a whole bunch of really heavy boxes about 2 blocks away from the convention center and proceed to walk them in one by one.
Yeah.
And get real sweaty and tired.
Is tradition the word I'd use?
If I did a bigger booth out there, I think a pallet might be worth exploring.
Yes, definitely. But yes, and so what that meant was, by the way, shout out to Zach Schuster, who also came to pinch hit at last minute to come and help with Justin's booth. And I will tell this story. We were at the Eisner Awards. Jonathan, Zach, and I went to watch. We were not invited, by the way. Let's not get it twisted. We went to sit with the rest of the regular attendees to watch it happen. But because Eric Zawatsky was there, nominated, we wanted to cheer the loudest as the Canadian contingent. But because we knew Eric and we lingered a little as they let the event out, it meant when they put up the partitions that only invited guests could be at this portion of the party. I looked around and said, guys, everyone here is not wearing everyone who's supposed to be here doesn't have a lanyard. So we took off our lanyards and we remained where we were talking to the people that we knew just so security wouldn't shoo us out. We had planned to leave, but then there was no reason to. Zach leaves for a little bit, comes back, leaves for a little bit, comes back, looks me right in the eye. Now, dear listener, we love Zach, but you should know this about Zach. Zach doesn't ask for help. That's not in his personality. That's not like really a thing that he does. He tends to put it all on his back and carry it. And so when he came over to me and he zeroed in with all seriousness and said, Gregory, I need your help. I thought medical emergency, like he's lost something important, like maybe his passport fell down, like he's like, I don't know what it is, but I feel the stakes are very high. And so I just disengage from the conversation I'm having, and I just try to make him my whole world. I look him right in his big eyes, looking up, he's taller than me, so looking up into his big eyes, and I said, whatever you need. And he looks down at me and he says, you have to introduce me to Jeff Smith, creator of Bone. And so I said, yes, Zach, I will do that. So we walked over where Jeff Smith was standing. I walked right over to him and I said, Jeff, I'd like to introduce you to my friend Zach, who is a fellow cartoonist. He absolutely admires you, and he would have regretted it if he didn't meet you. So he takes Zach's hand, he shakes it, he looks at me, and I say, no, Jeff, you do not know me either. And we had a great talk. He asked to see some of Zach's work, and I could see, because we've all done it, all of us who have been handed portfolios or any work of any kind. Zach had a little zine in his pocket, it turned out, not for this moment, but he just happened to have one. And I could see Jeff Smith formulate his poker face. I am going to encourage him no matter what. I could see the spell about to be cast. And then the shock on his face when he looked through it. And then he goes, wow, this is actually pretty good. And so then Zach is explaining, yeah, you know, you're the reason I'm a cartoonist. And I like your work, and I'm, you know, developing now. And he says, Zach, how old are you? He says, oh, I'm 30. He says, well, I just don't want you to lose heart. I was 31 when I made my first comic. So there's lots of time for you. And I said, well, Jeff, I'm 50. He said, you, Gregory, you ran out of time. There's no time left for you. You're done. And so that was our interaction with the creator of Bone, and it was absolutely delightful. And I also got to take a picture of Chip Kidd for somebody else, a graphic designer I greatly admire. And I didn't have any reason to, like, it's sort of like Zach, like, if there's no segue, there's no reason for an interaction that isn't extracting their time and attention just for your sake. But I saw someone trying to take a picture and, like, fumbling to take a picture with him. And so I went over and volunteered to take a picture. And I had them work it a little bit. I did a little bit of Austin Powers for them. And every time I did, I gave Chip Kidd a compliment for one of his works, which made him smile and laugh. And then I handed the phone back and said, it was great to meet you. And then I disappeared into the night.
This mystery, delightful man wandering around the party. It wasn't even invited.
It was not invited. The important part here is we snuck into our first Eisners party.
Was most proud of in terms of sneaking in was so we were waiting outside it was kind of like two areas, right? Like the area where the rewards were being given out, and then there was like the side area beside in the other room where like the VIP party was going. And then apparently there was another party elsewhere that like was the non-VIP section or whatever, where we should have been. But I didn't know that. So so I'm at this like one section. We were waiting for Eric to come out so we could congratulate him, but he wasn't coming out. We're like, well, wonder if we missed him or something. So we decided to risk it, me and Zach, by roaming inside to the place where we would. So it was like, one, we had to pass a security guard, and then two, we had to like be in there without the security guards noticing we were in there.
So keep in mind, they're not up to anything nefarious, and they're not chasing autographs or anything. It's really just so that they can say hi to people they actually know.
But that's, you know, they don't know that, right?
Yeah. Right.
And so anyway, so we're in there. So we got in there and we found Eric, and we were like, you know, congratulating him and chatting with him a bit. And I remember like while I was chatting with him, I like feel like a presence on my shoulder, and I look like over here, and Scott Snyder is standing beside me. And who knows 100% that I'm not supposed to be there. Right? Because Scott knows me enough that he turned and he said, oh, hey, John, good to see you. So, but at the same time, he's like, as he's saying that, I know like in his mind, he's like, this guy's not supposed to be here.
Yeah. Who let this guy in here?
But he, you know, he didn't turn me into the cops. So another thing that I owe Scott Snyder.
Oh my God. Yeah. I would also say that this may seem like a silly little thing, but I think a really important discovery was the other side of the street. There's a long walk from like along the main street up to San Diego Comic-Con, and one is paved and one is a green space with no sidewalk at all. And, you know, I guess the intention is that you're not supposed to walk there, I suppose. But once I realized that the kilometer or so from the hotel to the convention center, I could walk on grass under trees, while across the street, everyone is just in a tangled snarl monstrosity, pounding the pavement. It lifted my
green space.
Yeah, it lifted my spirits up. They were leaving it for me. Uh-huh. Yes, for the Sylvan boy to go traipsing through.
There were some weird circular depressions. So I feel like there's probably some danger in being there.
Yeah, I think there's hidden silos.
Or something.
Rockets come out of there for sure.
I mean, you really think this is an alien? Yeah. This is huge. I know. This is huge. I know. that a comic book shop? Can we go in there?
Maybe. If you're good.
You don't know this, Justin, but I was jealous of your booth position because you were also, speaking of things you miss out on that you don't know till it's too late, Colleen Doran did a signing not 10 meters from your booth. She is the cartoonist behind the very first comic I think I saw that was independently created by an independent voice, being self-published. When I was but a young lad, my girlfriend at the time, her mother was into comics, and she said, "Oh, you like comics? You shouldn't read that trash. You should read this good stuff." And Colleen Doran had self-published a comic called A Distant Soil, and rewrote my taste in like 2 issues of this comic. I was like, oh, it doesn't have to be Marvel, DC. It can be whatever you want. It was like my first early memory of like just people telling a story. And she was signing across from you and I.
The cartoons.
Yeah. And on Sunday, she and Jeff Smith were both inducted into the Cartoonist Hall of Fame this year. And so they were there. And I got to meet Jeff, but I didn't get to tell Colleen to her face. I have corresponded to her by email a couple of times to just tell her how much her work has meant to me. And she is positively delightful in correspondence that way. But I wanted to give her a high five.
It is the coolest thing. Like you follow a lot of creators you like on Instagram and Facebook. And during this week, all they're doing is posting about what they're doing at Comic-Con. You realize you're in the same room as all these people you look up to.
It is crazy making, though, if you are adjacent to it. I'll say this to your listener. You don't have to go to this show. There's this expectation that like it's Mecca and like the only way you can have a career in comics is to do this. Jonathan's had a career in comics. I've had one for 20 years before I even really started going to San Diego in a serious way. So like these things don't feel like, oh, if I don't get on a plane and get there, I'm going to miss all my opportunities.
Point of fact, Gregory, you haven't gotten to San Diego yet.
Mm-hmm.
You've come with Jonathan. You've come with me.
That's right. It's always been under different. Well, I'm with Z2 and with like different publishers always, right? Yeah. And so I've never, under my own steam, had my own booth. And one day, I'll crack that code.
Well, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but my feeling is after this going to show is I don't know that it makes any sense to go to it unless you already have a book with Image or a book with Source Point or whoever.
Like this is where I got hired by Marvel. I think this is where I got hired by Marvel twice.
You're an artist.
But still, like this is, if you're looking for those big companies to notice you, San Diego and New York is where it happens.
But I understand what you and just start trying to network.
Oh, that part. You gotta I would have the right stuff to be able to do that cold.
Or have something already out. Yeah. If you're running your own booth or something, I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about if I were just cold going, attending with the idea that I was going to network and meet people. To me, like, I could only do that because I have a comic.
The only way I can see that working is you need to be setting the groundwork well before the show. You need to be sending emails.
So we talked about this ahead. There are 2 schools of thought. There's the plan ahead, have everything scheduled. And Jonathan and I were talking about this. Lyndon is excellent at this. Reaching out ahead in a very professional way, setting time on the calendar, say I'll be here at this time and not missing out. That is so stress-inducing to me because at a show like that, every person in front of you is a potential reason you don't make your meeting on time. They spill their drink, they fall down, there's like a million reasons why you're going to miss that meeting.
Hard to get from A to B in a predictable time.
So hard. So I prefer. And what did happen to me the very first time I went with neither of you and just on my own, to float through with no plan, following your interest, but then following up after with things like contacts that you made. And not following up a day after or a week after, but a month after when all the dust is settled. When I was a nobody, I knew that I had to also not expect attention. And so I would wait for a month till after. And then follow up and say, now that the real dust has settled, maybe there's time for us to have a conversation. Do you remember me from such and such? And
it's weird. The recovery on this show is a real thing, physically and mentally. I'm done with crowds for a while. Shout out to Zach Schuster, who is now setting up for Gen Con this next weekend. And then Jed Henry as well. I don't know how they do these back-to-back massive shows.
Yeah, he flew back from SDCC to this other con.
To Gen Con, which is not a small show. That's a big deal as well.
Yeah, and a big deal for them, too, because it's busy. They've been working that one for a long time. So, it's absolutely a place where everyone goes to, you think, and also a place where everyone you think you need to know goes to. That's also true. But if they've been and you know them, follow up with them. Like, dear listener, if you're like, well, how do I make some use of other people's San Diego experience? Everyone, it's like the 6 degrees of separation. Everyone knows someone, and to get a foothold in any creative business, it's who you know, who knows what you can do. And a lot of people are presenting opportunities that are not right for me or John or Justin, but if we know that they're right for you, a lot of people have no trouble saying, oh, I know the guy that's for that. I saw that a lot of times. Like, oh, here's the contact of a person that would fit the bill. Now, as a former store owner, I also discovered something, which is why I was interested in the distributor panel. As a former store owner, I went and spent some time talking to, there's a publisher of comics called Massive, but they have a separate side of their business. And for any of you out there who are making independent comics, I think you should look them up. Their business is called Massive Indies. And what they do is they aggregate all the information to the distributors on your behalf under their umbrella. At the distributor panel, some people asked, if I'm an independent creator, how do I get listed for wider distribution? And they explained that the cost of your $200 books in their distribution center on the pick line, I can't pretend to understand everything they said about it, so I recorded it, is about the same as if they're doing a book that sells 10,000 copies. The man hours and the organization required, right? So that is why they don't, right? There is more people ahead of you in the line, with the exception of Prana Distribution and Massive Indies, which they said they are a wonderful way for an independent creator to get their book listed in the catalog, get a proper FOC, get bookstore orders, get comic store orders, and you send your stuff to Massive Indies, they send it to the distributor. And I also heard, I haven't seen it directly, but Massive Indies explained to me that for those independent comics that are listed with them, they also pay weekly. They have an entire system where they make sure they know that independent comic creators are taking a big risk, and whatever money there is, they try to disperse it immediately. So there is, I've never used it myself. So these are all third-party stories, but I did go and meet with the owner of the company. I met with the guy who runs the spreadsheets and does the paying. Like, I did some due diligence, because when the distributor says the one we trust is this guy and they don't screw up, you go find them, right? Because that chain of custody, as you know from other parts of your business life, John, is so important.
Well, I don't understand anything you've said, but
No.
I've heard that Massive Indies does a lot of stuff that you can't do.
Yeah,
as a comic person. So I presume that's all true.
I'll put my hat on as a former store owner. I want to bring more independent comics into the store. I flip through the catalog looking for them. They are not listed. I cannot, therefore, order them in my weekly order. And so now those independent comic companies don't get any shelf space. However, Massive Indies now has a section in that catalog. So you look at their section, they always have a section in the catalog, and it's always different because they have different titles all the time. And those different titles are from independent creators that they are opening their umbrella under them to be listed in the store catalog. So now suddenly a person who only printed 200 copies of their book is listed. And it will say in the listing, there are only 200, or there are only 80 left, or there are only 15 left. They are very good at that. Apocryphal. More news to follow.
One of just a simple, weird, cool thing that happened to me was I was in an elevator in the hotel. And there's, girls in the elevator there, and she's like, she sees my badge and she goes, you're going to San Diego? And I was like, well, I'm in San Diego. I thought I was hoping I was already here. So that made her laugh. And she's like, sorry, my brain's all melted. She's like, oh, you're a pro, because she sees the pro badge that I had on. I said, yeah. I go, I've got a comic called, The Eye Collector out. And her eyes lit up. She's like, I know The Eye Collector. And I was like, what, somebody knows The Eye Collector?
Yeah.
It was just really funny. And she was like, she was, I guess, an artist herself, and she loved your art and it and so on. But
Jonathan has left the hotel, had only been gone 5 minutes. I get this frantic text from him saying, oh my God, I have the coolest story.
He's like, already? I was like,
you've only been gone 5 minutes. How could you have a story?
But it was just interesting because it really set a tone for me of like, oh, wow, maybe, this isn't a total, obscurest thing. Like, it is a very obscure thing, don't get me wrong. But it was just like, it made me feel like, a big shot for a minute.
Well, I mean, that's pretty cool. Like running into somebody right away who knows your book.
Yeah, it was interesting. I couldn't believe how many people I ran into who knew it or who came by the booth and saw it. Because we had some for sale there, although we weren't really featuring it because it just cost less than other things. But it's we only have the one issue at that point. We only had the one issue out, so it's not really we can't flood the table with other stuff that Image hasn't started selling yet, right? So we were, even though we've got copies we could have sold, we weren't.
We can't break that on sale date.
So for that reason, we didn't really have it prominent at the booth in any way. We didn't have the banner for it up. We just had a couple issues on the side, sort of thing. But I couldn't believe how many people like that see it and then knew what it was.
There'll be more news on this to follow, but also my Thistle Grimoire, can't even say the name of my own book, banner brought a lot of creative people to the table, someone who writes for Star Trek and someone who writes for the D&D comic and a variety of other people who came, and they would track their eye down the banner to the prints, to the weird book, where then we had Eye Collector beside it and go, wait, is this you too? So they had been lured there by other auspices, and then we were very surprised to find that people inside the industry gave a shit about the efforts that we had put in. So that was really great. I guess the bottom line here, dear listener, because there'll be many stories that trickle out of SDC as we follow up. We'll tell the lead in and then the follow up, and that's more useful to you at a later date. Is that you go into a room full of people you don't know, and you just do your best. You just try to show as honestly and as forthrightly as possible the work that you do. Not the work you hope they hope you do, but your work. And it sometimes works out.
Yeah, practice in other places before San Diego Con.
Absolutely true.
Good way to run your beef.
Well, this has been the first of, I think, a few San Diego breakdowns. Here at Super Pulp Science, dear listeners, we want you to also make comics and make them weird. This is Jim B. Kamichuk, encouraging you to join the fight and make comics.